Joining us online, a warm welcome and an invitation to introduce yourself in the chat. We affirm that whoever you are, wherever you come from, whomever you love, wherever you are on your journey, however you identify, you are welcome in our faith community. I'm delighted that Sue Richards Harper is joining us with her music, Celtic harp music this morning, and thankful for our music director, Les Downs, and our AV tech coordinator, Simon Jacobs. We also gratefully celebrate Reverend Kathy's ministry at UU Asheville. She's been a good transplant, easily putting down roots, providing shelter through the many transitions of COVID and the congregation, flowering here, and bringing to fruition the next phase of our cycle, a new settled minister for our congregation. We celebrate her service and wish her well. Now, let us prepare for worship with today's centering music.
Good morning. It's good to see you all this morning. The chalice lighting I chose is from our retiring UUA president, Susan Frederick Gray. As we light our chalice this morning, may we remain mindful of just how radical and powerful love is, and how dangerous those who use fear to build power perceive love to be. May we know how necessary and essential it is to keep alive the message of universal love, of humanity and human dignity, reverence for life, every life, all creation in our hearts and in our actions. May we remember also anew that we are among the keepers of the flame. Thank you, Jane. So now I have opening words for our flower communion, which is a 100th year anniversary of this communion ceremony. And I'm going to give you a little information and history about why this is important to Unitarian Universalists and our faith. So this is written by Thomas Rhodes, and this is for you. We come in a variety of colors, shapes, and sizes. Some of us grow in bunches, some of us grow alone. Some of us are cupped inward, and some of us spread ourselves wide. Some of us are old and dried and tougher than we appear. And some of us are still in bud, even when we're in our 80s, right? breath. Some of us grow low to the ground, and some of us stretch toward the sun. And sometimes some of us feel like we're weeds, sometimes. Some of us carry seeds, sometimes. Some of us are prickly, sometimes. And some of us smell. I kept reading that and thinking, does he mean just smell, period? He did. And all of us are beautiful. What a delightful bouquet of people we are. It's good to be together again. Please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing hymn number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth. Now it's time for our wonderful wisdom story. Kim Collins is going to share that with us.
How many of you have been on an adventure? You all, have you been on an adventure? You've been on an adventure, I think. All right, so our Reverend Kathy is leaving us for a new adventure. She is going to go to Buffalo and adventure there in the snow. And we are also embarking on a new adventure with our new minister, Reverend Audette, who will be with us in the fall. So we are going to explore the unknown with our adventure story. Your mama shakes you out of bed. She says, "My darling dear, you need to run to Grandma's quick. She's feeling ill, I fear. Now take this cake to cheer her up and have a lovely day. But mind the path, for danger tends to lurk along the way." So up you jump, you give a nod, and through the room you tear. But wait, you'll need to grab your coat. It's rather cool out there. What next, Rosie? Which coat will you wear? To slip on your coziest foul fur coat, turn to page 20. To grab your favorite red cape, turn to page 6. What do you think? You want to put on the red cape? Okay, so we've chosen the red cape. We're going to get to page 6. A wolf! is waiting by the path out in the morning sun. I like your fine red cape, he says. You heading someplace fun? I'm off to see my grandma, you tell your toothy friend. Her house is purple with a gate down at the very end. I haven't time to chat just now. I've got a ways to walk, but have a lovely afternoon, and another time we'll talk. The wolf just nods his furry head and quickly slips away. He flicks his tail and disappears into the sunny day. And standing on the path alone, you fear you've been unwise. You can't forget his claws or jaws or his shifty yellow eyes. You wish you had met that wolf. You wish he didn't know exactly how you plan to walk and where you mean to go. Are you going to let that wolf scare you away from your adventure? Yes, silly, wolves are no joke. Go back inside and start fresh tomorrow, turn to page 2. To take a deep breath and journey on, turn to page 50. Gwendolyn, where should we go? Page 50, okay. We're gonna get, okay. You will not let that mean old wolf destroy your lovely day. That furry bully has no right to bother you this way. But you've a care for safety, and so you shed your hood. The sun is bright and you'll be fine. It's warm now in the wood. The smell of flowers fills the air, so fragrant and so sweet. But then you notice there's a sound, a somber, steady beat. You know your grandma's waiting, but she'll be home all day. You've got some time to wander. The question is, which way? What should you do with your extra minutes to gather some fragrant flowers for Grandma? Turn to page 16. To follow the sound of the beating drum, turn to page 8. Let's see. Page 8, okay. The somber drumbeat leads you to a coffin in a glen. Inside you find a maiden fair around its 7 men. The drummer stops and waves hello, then reaches for your cake. So kind of you to come, he says. We'll serve this at the wake. You're not quite certain what to do. You don't mean to be rude, but you don't know this pretty girl, and that's your grandma's food. Are you gonna let those dwarves take grandma's goodies? It's only cake, and they're really sad. To let them have the treat, turn to page 66. No way, you've already wasted too much time. To grab your cake and head to Grandma's, turn to page 54. Let's see, what do you think?
54.
54, okay. Here we go. You shake your head. I have to leave or Mama will be miffed. I'm sorry that your friend is dead. I hope your spirits lift. Once you're back upon your path, you hear an angry shout. Somewhere a boy is bellowing. You wonder what about. You've wasted too much time today. You really need to fly. But in your gut, you wonder what, and who, and how, and why. First a drumbeat, now a shout. Are you really going to waste more time? To ignore the noise and run straight to Grand's, turn the page to 34. Who are you kidding? You have to know what all this yelling is about. Turn to page 56. Let's see, Charlotte, what do you think? Which one? 56, okay. You head off through the trees again. You track the shouts of rage and find them coming from a kid, a boy about your age. He kicks and shouts and punches. He bellows and he rants. He's also dripping wet and wears a frown and underpants. You blush until your face is red. You want to run away, but then you're also curious. Now, how did he get this way? Are you really going to hang around with this wet, pantsless boy? To head home now and avoid this ridiculous mess altogether, turn to page 64. To ask what's wrong and help this poor kid, turn to page 24, star.
24.
Thought I was going to switch it up a little bit, but... Okay, let's see here. 24, you step a little closer. You ask, are you okay? You look upset and sopping wet. I'm Rosie, by the way. Hello, he says, my name is Jack. I'm not okay at all. Some awful hunter stole my pants and boots, and that's not all. While I was bathing in the creek, he also took my goose. I only hope she manages to somehow wriggle loose. He ran in that direction. I don't know what to do. When Mum finds out I lost our bird, she'll put me in the stew. I don't suppose you'll help me go and see if you can find that hunter and retrieve my clothes. I'm in an awful bind. Are you really going to head off on a wild goose chase? To apologize kindly, but head along home, turn to page 64. To do the kid a favor, turn to page 60. Lotus, what do you think? 60, okay, we're gonna help this guy out. That's probably what a you would do, right? Okie dokie. You quickly take your jerkin off and hand it straight to Jack. The poor boy's nearly naked, no need to give it back. And after that, you walk a ways, you climb a little hill. From there, you can see everything, a bridge, a fort, a mill. You spy your grandma's cottage, a stream, a pretty lake, and everywhere the winding path. So many turns to take. It's nice to rest a minute, to stop and think a bit, to see the world around you and slowly ponder it. Until you spot a fluttering, a pale thing in the wood. Could that be Jack's beloved goose, or is it gone for good? And somewhere else below you, a man's voice fills the air. Hunting we will go, he sings, be tasty and beware. You aren't sure what to do, which direction should you go? To follow the ominous hunting song, turn to page 14. To chase the vague white flutter that might be a goose, turn to page 72. What do you guys think? Oh, wait. 14, okay. We're gonna go back to 14, okay. Here we go. We're gonna find out what this song is all about. You bravely dash into the woods, you hunt the hunter down, and find him standing by a heap of wolf upon the ground. Hello there, girl, the hunter calls. Aren't you a lucky pup? If you'd come any sooner, he might have chewed you up. You really don't know what to say. He's holding poor Jack's goose. It's awful dead without a head, and feathers coming loose. And yet, you're glad the wolf is gone. You really can pretend. You're grateful to the hunter, although he robbed your friend. Thank you, I guess, you stammer, and then turn and walk away. You're feeling so bewildered by this crazy mixed-up day. You aren't sure of anything, what's good, what's bad, and why. You guess it's time to head on home. You hope Mom's baking pie. The end.
Thank you, Kim. So now, children and youth, we invite you to religious exploration. You'll be sung out of the sanctuary, and RE leaders will lead you downstairs. Parents, if you are new or visiting, please come downstairs with the RE leaders so that you can see where to pick your children up after the service. And all children and youth should be picked up by 12:30. You're welcome to stay if you like as well. So now we'll sing you out. What a joy to see all those lovely children. So now in the center of our service and in the center of our lives, let us pause to honor the silences of the world. Let's open our hearts to the place of quiet, to the silent prayer for the healing of pain and the soft, gentle coming of love. Before we enter a moment of silence together, I'd like to share a prayer from Rabbi Harold Kushner. Let the rain come and wash away the ancient grudges, the bitter hatreds held and nurtured over generations. Let the rain wash away the memory of the hurt, of the neglect, and then let the sun come out and fill the sky with rainbows. Let the warmth of the sun heal us wherever we are broken. Let it burn away the fog so that we can see one another clearly, so that we can see beyond labels, beyond accents, gender, or skin color. Let the warmth and brightness of the sun melt our selfishness so that we can share the joys and feel the sorrows of our neighbors. And let the light of the sun be so strong that we will see all people as our neighbors. Let the earth, nourished by the rain, bring forth flowers to surround us with beauty. And let the mountains teach our hearts to reach upward towards heaven. Amen. And now let us enter a moment of silence. And now is time for the sharing of our joys and sorrows with a candle lighting ritual. If you're in the sanctuary, please come forward to light a candle. And if you're online, you can write in the chat box any joy or sorrow that you would like to share with the congregation. And I will light 2 candles for you, one joy and one for sorrow. If you have shared a joy, know that this congregation rejoices with you. And if you have shared a sorrow, know that you are held in love and care by this community. Now we have a musical reflection.
Thank you. The rhododendron dell in Golden Gate Park was planted around the same year I was born, just 3 blocks away. Thriving under a planted canopy of pines and Monterey cypress, over 800 Asian and North American varieties grew 3 and 4 times taller than I did in the next 20 years before I lived in San Francisco again. The dell was my tranquil refuge and study place. Every April, those seemingly identical plants became this amazing kaleidoscope of saturated garnet, palest rose, citrusy orange, soft yellow, just magical. A couple of decades later, after living in a couple of places where rhododendron did not grow well, I was excited that our spring travels would take us near New Hampshire's Rhododendron State Park, the largest stand at only 16 acres of native rhododendron in New England. We stepped out of the car, not a bloom in sight, not even the tiniest of buds. My assumption that they would bloom in April like every other rhododendron I'd ever met just wasn't right. I was so disappointed that it was hard to focus on the amazing national natural landmark it actually is. We were, in fact, 3 months too early. Native rhododendron maximum blooms in July and blooms in New England in mid-July. I've learned a bit more now, especially living here, and can follow Maxima minimus and Catawba blooms through the changes in elevation and the calendar, timing my hikes so my trail is sprinkled with flowers. So 2 thoughts. Every being has its own time for blooming and fading, in its own space, at its own pace. If we aren't in tune with that song, that's on us. Second, the flowering is spectacular. But so too is the way those leathery rhododendron leaves can curl so tightly when it gets cold. That special color of the reddish twisted bark on the twisted branches in the rhododendron dells, or as we often call them here, hells, especially if you've been lost in them. The new growth, which appears so soon after a fire, these are miracles too. Ursula Le Guin translates chapter 16 of the Tao Te Ching this way. Now they flower, and flowering sink homeward, returning to root. The return to root is peace. Peace, to accept what must be, to know what endures. In that knowledge is wisdom. May we bloom in our own time, and may we find peace and wisdom.
Thank you for that beautiful message. So, Unitarian minister Norbert Chapik had similar sort of reaction to the flowers, that emotion that they bring out in us. 100 years ago, when he was walking through a park, he was in Czechoslovakia, and he was trying to think of a ritual to bring hope to his congregation because it was a painful time. Europe was at war, all of Europe. And he came upon a magnificent array of colorful flowers gently swaying in the breeze. And he thought, yes, my people are just like this diverse display of blossoms. And so he decided to create a ritual of communion of flowers. He says, we have chosen flowers, nature's most tender, common, and beautiful gift, as our symbol and our sacrament. A liberal congregation, as opposed to the body and the blood. This communion was flowers. Jason Cook wrote an essay about the flower communion and the history of 100 years. And he said the flower communion was quickly embraced in the Prague church, bringing with it that missing spiritual dimension that some of the church members longed for. But Chapik's church was not to remain in blissful peace for long. World War II came along and brought with it a devastating impact for Europe and the Unitarians in Czechoslovakia. They were profoundly affected. Cook's research revealed that while Prague was occupied by the Nazis, 2 Gestapo agents showed up at every single service in Chapik's church. They reported they were frustrated by sermons that seemed to contain subversive messages and even jibes at the occupiers, which were hard to pin down. Chapik's ministry, with its emphasis on unity within diversity, manifested in ritual, refused to alter his ministry or his principles, despite the presence of evil within his own church walls. He continued to preach the unifying message of diversity so prevalent in his ministry and translated into ritual, such as the flower communion, which was considered dangerous and radical by the occupying forces. In 1940, Chapik was arrested by the SS, convicted of treason and sent to Dachau concentration camp. Following in the tradition of many other Unitarians of earlier years, going all the way back to the 1500s, when in Transylvania, leaders of our Unitarian movement were often imprisoned or executed. Chapik, the bright-eyed, affable 70-year-old man, Cook writes, who was a minister up to 3,200 parishioners, was an unlikely religious martyr, but that is exactly what he would become. But even within the walls of Dachau, where one could imagine losing all hope, Norbert Chapik stayed committed to his Unitarian principles that led him to create the flower communion. Amongst the starvation and punishment of the camp, eyewitnesses discussed how he remained in good spirits, helping others feel a connection to God despite the abuses they suffered. So while it might have been natural in that atmosphere, Cook writes, the haunting realities of Dachau for Chapik to dismiss his flower communion as trite or insignificant. Fellow prisoners described how he oversaw a flower communion in the camp. A camp member wrote, Bert Clow, and one Sunday, there being no flowers in that barren place, the prisoners brought stones and twigs, which were blessed by Chapik. And there was so much joy amongst the multitude. Moreover, during his imprisonment at the hands of the Nazis, Čapek continued to write songs to keep up the spirits of his fellow prisoners, many of whom said they would have given up all hope if it had not been for him. On October 12, 1942, Čapek was put to death in the gas chamber. The Third Reich documents explicitly state that he was too dangerous to be allowed to live. Teresa Schwartz wrote this about the Flower Communion. Čapek was a visionary minister with a church ahead of its time, a bold church, a church thinking beyond its doors, beyond what he thought was possible. It was a church willing to take risks, to make tough decisions, to bear disappointment, and to build a new way. First, by building a church, and a church that could build up the world. And this is our church. This is your church. That was Čapek's church. The Nazis killed Norbert Čapek, but his spirit and his courage and his commitment live on today, and those qualities have been passed on now to us to make them real. What we are about to do is not a historical reenactment of something over and done, but an affirmation of our continuity with our generations of struggle for an ever-widening liberty for all. This flower ceremony, lovely though it is, isn't a diversion from the ugly reality, but a gentle fierceness which proclaims that in the midst of sinister days there is always light, beauty, and hope. The Flower Communion in Czechoslovakia is the most popular event of the year. Over Christmas Eve, all of it. It is the highlight, representing the beauty of diversity. But for Čapek, it was also a protest against fascism, violence, silencing of people we don't agree with. It is anti-authoritarian. As the current minister of Čapek's church frames it, the Flower Communion is a form of resistance. We are the flower people, like the hippies, he said, showing that there is a better way for us to live in harmony and in peace. And so now as we celebrate our 100th anniversary of the Flower Communion, let's do so with the same reverence and power that it deserves. And those of you who are worshiping from home, we have a QR code that if you take your phone camera and just put it up to that code, you will be able to access a flower wheel, which you can, in some ways, participate with us in this Flower Communion. So because the spirit of the original Flower Communion is not to choose a flower, but to receive a flower. So Jane and I will give the first person in line, we'll take 2 rows of flower, and what I'd like you to do is to accept that flower as a gift, and then choose another flower and turn around and give it to the person behind you in the spirit of blessing. And so, let us begin. I'm always amazed at how that works out. Of course, I have anxiety, right? I brought the pipe cleaners thinking you could make your own flour if you need. So I hope that, that from now on, that we will treat the flower communion with deep respect, because it is a wonderful reminder of our heritage and who we are and why we are here. So may the message and the meaning of the flower communion be alive in our hearts, inviting us to be faithful partners in the creation of beloved community and guiding us toward right relationship with all of our neighbors, both near and far. Please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing Morning Has Broken, hymn number 38.
And now for the work of the congregation. First, I would like to invite any visitors with us to stand and introduce yourselves. The ushers will be bringing a microphone. If you would just stand, we're excited to meet you.
Well, good morning. I'm Beverly Bren. I just moved back to the States from Germany, where I've been for 30 years. And I love the mountains, so I'm looking for my home in the mountains, perching in Asheville, also going to Waynesville. So I'm delighted to join you lovelies today. Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Shay Thames. I've actually lived in Asheville since 2011, but this is my first visit here. And I moved, in case you couldn't tell from my accent, from South Carolina. But I love the spirit here, and I love the welcome, and the flower ceremony was beautiful. So thank you for having me.
Welcome. There.
Good morning. My name is Elena Helmer, and I've been searching for a long time for a spiritual home for me and my daughter. And I can't believe how beautiful this service is. I'm just like trying to hold back tears. So thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Chris Taylor. I'm from Candler. Those were some really great welcomes, so it's hard to top that, but happy to be here.
Welcome.
And my name is Laura Taylor. Yeah, we've been looking for a place, so we are happy to be here and hope to come back.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is Cassidy Lloyd, and this is our first visit here. This is our son, August, and
Hi, I'm Tim.
And we have another son whose name is Finn, and he's in RE.
Welcome. Welcome all of you to join us in Sandburg Hall after the service so we can get to know you a little bit more. Today's announcement slides can be reviewed by watching the beginning of today's YouTube, and will run again at the end of the service, as well as being found in Thursday's weekly e-news. If you don't receive the e-news, ask an usher to help you, to tell you how to sign up. Clyde has an announcement and invitation.
I'm afraid it's longer than just an announcement or an invitation. Bear with me. You know, we gave Reverend Kathy an impossible job. Come here in the middle of a pandemic to a church significantly larger than her previous churches, after the retirement of a long-serving and much-loved minister, where she couldn't meet the vast majority of our community. In the early days, I remember hearing her exclaim several times, "I have a phantom congregation." The job of an interim minister in our church is already hard enough. It comes with almost all the normal responsibilities of a called minister: be the spiritual leader of the church, oversee all the church programs, including all the worship activities and RE, help us achieve our stated mission, manage our staff, and oversee all of our financial operations. Of course, she has help with this, but she is the one who is ultimately responsible. And as interim, Kathy also has transition-related duties. Help us discover or rediscover our history, our values, and where we want to take this church in the future. Also, she must work with the transition team and the search committee to make sure we get to the finish line, that all-important finish line. If that wasn't enough already, throw into the mix that she had to deal with the resignation and replacement of a very long-time administrator, and then replace that replacement. Add to that the issue of our membership decline and financial health issues, which thankfully we found a way of dealing with. And if that weren't enough, remember that she did this in the midst of significant communal and personal losses. Yes, I think we gave Reverend Kathy an impossible job. Through all of this, Reverend Kathy maintained a positive attitude, always looking on the bright side, seeing the good in us, both as individuals and as a congregation, and the potential we have to address that which challenges us. Always showing hope and optimism. It came out in her sermons, it came out in her conversations with us. Speaking of conversations, I was privileged to have quite a few one-on-ones with Kathy. As board president, I met with her twice a month for about an hour. Although the meetings were mostly about board and church business, the conversations were breezy, and we often went off on some enjoyable tangents about other things. I felt like I got to know Kathy personally, at least a little bit, through those conversations. She is an absolutely lovely human being, full of positive energy and good humor, sweet and kind, always looking for what she can do for some other human being. And in my experience with her, she has always tried to do the right thing, always. All really important qualities in a minister. And then there were the stories, personal stories, meaningful stories, with real life animating her ministry. We've heard them in sermons and elsewhere, often originating from her hair salon or her bakery in Alaska. By the way, I can tell you she makes one mean sourdough waffle. Even though I got more time with Kathy than most, there are still areas of her work that I can't see. Some for confidentiality reasons, some just because I can't see them. One of these areas is staff management. I know no details myself, I really don't, but I am told by staff that I trust implicitly that Kathy was highly skilled at this. Kathy has formal training in conflict management, and apparently she knows how to use it very well. Another area invisible to us is pastoral care, where confidentiality is of prime importance. My wife, Iris, chairs the pastoral care team, or pastoral visitors as they were previously known. And I can tell you that she is a vault when it comes to that work. Now, interim ministers typically rely heavily on pastoral care teams already in existence. But Iris tells me that Reverend Kathy saw a need to do more than just let that team do the job. Would have been the easy thing. She wanted to work with that team to help meet the deep pastoral needs of a community still working to come together in the midst of a pandemic that we thought was over. Kathy's pastoral presence, while often invisible, was a gift to many. It's perhaps fitting that we share Reverend Kathy's celebration with a celebration of our passage of the eighth principle, since she's had a long-standing commitment to equity and racial justice. In her first year with us, Kathy jumped in to help out our board's racial justice efforts by organizing a 6-session facilitated reading of Ibram X. Kendi's book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. I think it helped out the board greatly, and I can tell you that it opened my eyes quite a bit. So one more extra thing from Kathy. So with all the challenges of her 2 years with us, pandemic, large phantom congregation, worship service, budget issues, staff management, staff replacement, transition activities, responsibility for every program in the church, plus all those extras I mentioned, and undoubtedly many others unmentioned or unknown to me, how did she do it? I'm tempted to quote Mitch McConnell's comment about Elizabeth Warren during the Jeff Sessions confirmation hearings. Nevertheless, she persisted. Yes. Yes, she persisted. She persisted with her positive attitude, her encouragement, and her belief in us and what we could do. And she delivered us to that all-important finish line. We're here at that finish line, in great shape, with a bright future ahead of us. You know, we gave Reverend Kathy an impossible job. She did it anyway. Thank you so very much, Reverend Kathy. I don't have something, but if you want to say something, you can. You do? So, Reverend Kathy, I will say something, but I just want to tell you that right after we close the service, there's a celebration in Sandburg Hall. There's cake. There's other edibles. I'm told to. I didn't know that was going to be funny. And there's going to be a couple gift presentations, and the mic that we set up for that's going to be open. So if anybody wants to say something about our dear departing interim minister.
Oh my gosh. I hate goodbyes. You know, I really love to just sneak out the back door. And as many times as I've had to say goodbye as an interim minister to congregations that I've grown to love, it hasn't gotten any easier. I have a big heart and a lot of room for all of you to be there. And I predict that you will continue to grow if you work together like you have in the last 2 years. I mean, I didn't do this on my own, Clyde. I mean, everybody worked together. I had a lot of support. What a wonderful staff you have. I hope that you will say thank you to them as well. My son sent me a picture of an Andy Griffith show with Andy and Barney sleeping in church. It's funny, and they were, and the caption was, there's a fine line between a long sermon and a hostage situation. And for those of you that felt held hostage, I apologize. I'm sorry. So I know that you will thrive as long as you continue to love one another the way I've seen you love one another and care for one another. And that pastoral visitors team, pastoral care team is powerful. The women who make shawls for the women and men who make shawls for people who are at home in need, thank you. I can't tell you how much. It's depleted. You need to start knitting again because Reverend Audette will want those. So I trust that you will spread the good news of liberal religion and work for justice for all and heal this troubled world. I know you will. And in my heart, you will always be. And I'll be loving you from afar. And I wish you, may you all, this congregation, live happily, endlessly after. And so the closing words I have for this sermon, I think we're there, are we? Jane Ricard, I thought, we have a calling in this world. We have a calling to honor diversity, to respect differences with dignity, and to challenge those who would forbid it. We are a people of a wide path. Let us be wide in affection, and may we go together in peace. So before we sing Long Time Son, if you need to leave before the postlude, please do so quietly so we can all hear the beautiful Celtic harp. Oh, we didn't do an offering. Oh, for Pete's sake. Just drop it in a basket on the way out, I guess. Yeah, because we're running late. Okay. I trust you will do that. Long Time Son. Let's rise in body or spirit and sing Long Time Son. Blessed be. Thank you, Sue. Thank you.
Thank you for doing this with us. Now, go party.
I brought my lipstick just in case.
Oh, good.
I'll sneak that.